Today we got another talent tree guide and review for Star Wars RPG by Fantasy Flight Games from the Rise of the Separatists sourcebook. Was that in frame? Motherfucker. The Republic Representative is a universal specialization, and it is definitely a pure talker meant to represent a senator or other political representative of the Republic. And you can come from a variety of backgrounds, which is probably why we have this unique thing. I don't recall ever seeing it in the game before. As one of the 4 career skills you get as part of a specialization, we get knowledge. Choose any one. You just pick a knowledge skill, and that's your career skill. It makes sense because not every version of the game has every knowledge skill. Age of Rebellion introduces knowledge warfare and knowledge core worlds. Edge has, knowledge underworld. I mean, the line between an age game and an edge game and so on, it's blurry. It's all the same stuff, but it's a universal spec, going to be your second or later specialization that you have. It kind of makes sense that they would allow for the flexibility to create whatever character makes sense thematically. A representative could be from any Republic world and anywhere. Knowledge Underworld, Knowledge Core World, either of these things could make sense for your character. So that bit of flexibility is nice, but make no mistake, this is by no means a knowledge character. I know that's a common pairing with talking, but no, it is a pure talker, pure and simple, and a presence-based one at that. The other career skills we get are presence-based, mostly talking or related to it. So, what do we got here? First of all, talking defense. We got some pretty good talking defense with a couple ranks of nobody's fool. So it's less likely someone's going to get one over on you. In terms of actually helping with your talking, there's a pretty big emphasis on removing penalties as opposed to adding good stuff to your checks. Like, there's a lot of removing setback die, kill with kindness. We've seen that a bunch of times before. We've also have leverage, which I'm pretty sure is new, and quite a few ranks of it, which basically fills in some of the presence talking-based skill gaps that kill with kindness leaves. And on top of it, this helps with initiative a little bit, as well as strain management, which we'll get a bit more of later, at least thematically. Someone who's pretty strong-willed and unflappable. Hard to flap, this one is, once you build them out. Translation error. This one I'm a big fan of. Basically, a really bad thing could happen as a result of your talking, and you're like, oh, my bad. See, I didn't know that was offensive. In my culture, claiming you're someone who enjoys watching me bang your wife is the highest of compliments. Really, you should be thanking me. I suppose that's more of a cultural mistranslation. Anyway, consider our options is another talent, basic and improve, where basically use your talking check to say, oh, let's not fight, let's consider our other options, and then they attack anyway. Something bad might happen, so maybe they don't attack you in the first place, or they do attack you, and then something bad happens to them, and, well, the bad thing is strain. It's strain related, which can allow for some creative description on the player GM part. Whoever is doing the description in the moment, keep this in mind. Some enemies do not have a strain threshold, right? They just take wounds instead of normally they would take strain whenever it's inflicted on them. So they're taking damage, which means that when this comes into play, let's consider our options. No, and then you shoot me, and then I counterattack with whatever this is. I'm clearly someone you shouldn't fuck with. You counterattack, you do damage to the enemy, and in a descriptive way. It's not an actual attack. You don't roll dice, but it just shakes up the description a little bit, and you can extend this same benefit to allies to a certain extent. So, like the Politico or other talking trees, you do have a unique action to do that uses your character's ability as a talker to help influence the battle in different ways and help out your allies, inflict damage, in this case, to enemies. It's nice. It's not the awesome buff and debuff combination that Politico gets that will still be my favorite talker in the game. I've yet to see anyone that comes even close to dethroning it, but still, this is pretty decent so far. Another talent they have that is definitely really significant, but I'm still on the fence as to whether I like it or not. Backroom deal. It's one of those things where, can I just do it? Do I really need a talent to do it? But you are retconning something, so it kind of makes sense, which I'm never a big fan of. Okay, I should actually explain what it is. So backroom deal. Basically, let's say you're in a situation where we're talking to Huts. Like, we did a job for the Huts, and we're there to collect our payment. And they're like, no, we're going to keep you a prisoner for some reason. and you're like, actually, you know those twin bounty hunter bodyguards that you've been hiring to protect you for the last 6 months? I gave them a better offer. And then the guns turn on the hut. So let's start this over again. You were going to pay us more than you originally offered, which was very, very generous of you. Thank you for that. And then we were going to go on our merry way. So basically, if you roll well enough, you have a chance of retconning the situation so that you did something off camera to help you. See, here's the thing. I would rather just do that. Can I just do that? Can I just ask the GM to, like, we have all this flexibility. Can I just ask the GM to, hey, can I do a backroom deal? Why can't I just do that? And why does it have to be off camera? Why can't it be on camera? Why can't I have a few minutes where I'm talking to these bounty hunters? Like, this is a plan I'm working out with the rest of the group. Like, you use your connections to get me to talk to these people, and then I can make a backroom deal with them, use my talking skills. Maybe we need to do a task for them to butter them up. Some ancient religious artifact that's important to them, and we get it. It was stolen. It's in a museum. It belongs in the hands of the people. We steal it. We give it to them as a sign of trust. And now, do you have our back if the hut betrays us? Like, this could be a whole big thing. And yes, I did kind of steal that from the Inquisitor story in Star Wars: The Old Republic. But no one played that game, so it doesn't matter. I'm allowed to steal it. Shouldn't have even said anything. Anyway, that sounds fun. Can I just do that? Obviously, there's going to be benefits to doing this way. Instead, it's going to be quicker, easier. If you didn't think of it, you need some way out. Oh, wait! But dun dun dun, then you reveal that your character did this smart thing without anyone being the wiser. Not even you until you just figured it out just this second, which I'm not a fan of. I think I like it better than other versions, than, like, you know, change the scene. You spend a destiny point, you're just like, no, this isn't true, this is true. It's so broad that it feels like cheating. I never liked those mechanics in any RPG. Here it's a bit more specific. It fits your character really well. It can make for an interesting dramatic moment. And to do it the normal way, it stands to reason. It's very easy to see how it would take multiple steps and be a longer, more difficult thing to do. So it's easy to see why this would be inherently more useful than the natural way, and so you don't necessarily fall into that trap where you're already allowing the players to do a thing that this talent now gives you the right to do. You know, like, what's the point of this talent? The line between what your characters can do before and after this talent is a lot more obvious, so it kind of works for me. Though, as a talker, I would rather just do it. Just think ahead, use my brain in real life, more so than using your character's brain within the story. Okay, I've talked too much about this talent, smooth talker. I've talked about this before, not a big fan. You pick a talking skill, which is nice that has that flexibility. You get a benefit with that talking skill, but the benefit is arguably not overly useful. It depends. In most cases, you're in a situation where you have a triumph, but you failed, and you need more successes, so you spend the triumph to get the successes. Not a big fan of that. As far as more improvements to your talking checks in general, we got Respected Delegate, which is basically the talking version of Respected Scholar, I think it was, where when talking with certain related institutions, in this case government institutions, you have improvements to your talking checks. I think this is inherently more useful than the Scholar one, especially if you do it in this setting, in a war setting. It's a bit more intuitive and more natural to have situations in which your players would be talking to various government institutions, as opposed to, say, a scholar talking to various academic institutions. I feel like you have to go a bit more out of your way to make that happen, and so you might get a bit more mileage out of this than your scholar buddy would with Respected Scholar. Not necessarily so, it depends on GM, blah blah blah. And this talent actually plays a big part in how much I can recommend this tree, just how broadly that would be interpreted. Make it work as often as possible, because you don't get a lot of great general help with your career skills or your talking skills. In this one, there is one of those big ones where you get to re-roll a certain talking skill check with a very high cost, which is nice, but not a lot of great, just bread and butter, here are my improvements to talking. Unless you count the removing of penalties, which is dependent on how often those penalties are actually there. So that's going to be dependent on the GM. So overall, your fun, your usefulness, it may be a bit more dependent on the GM and the content specifically than some other talkers, but not necessarily. You still get a cool new thing to do to be useful, in the battle that isn't directly battle necessarily. You're using or talking to be useful in the battle, but it's an overall decent talker. Except for the fact that it's a universal specialization and no one's going to start with this. They have to go out of their way to get this as a second tree. If I started with it, I would be okay with it, but if it's your second one, at that point, it just feels like too much to get not enough for me personally. It's okay. You're not going to be miserable if you pick it, but there's plenty of better options. Building it, presence, obviously this is all about the presence. Will is important. You know, talking defense, will is good for any talker, but this is very much a presence-based tree. And of course, take into account whatever else tree you're coming from, whatever is important to there. Who should play this? I guess maybe a talker who is more cunning-based, intimidation-based. They want to be more of a diplomat. Ooh, I actually kind of like that. There's a couple coercion-based talkers in the game. I like the idea, especially, I think the Heavy has one. I haven't looked at it, but the Heavy has one. Maybe you start as a hot enforcer type, breaking thumbs or that type of thing, and eventually you realize that can't be the only tool. You do have a knack for talking and words. Even though you're this big, supposedly dumb brute, you actually have a skill. You got the silver tongue, and eventually you're going to grow into a more dignified talker and bring in some presence stuff. I kind of like that. I kind of want to make that character now. Okay, now I like the tree. I have a character where it works, where it fits. Now I really like the tree. And that's how it plays out. So we're done. We're done for, yeah. Okay, bye.